And good morning to you. It is the Nikki Medoro show. I'm Kim McAllister. Sorry for the late start. Everything, it's one of these nights. I have to tell you, I didn't sleep all night long because I got hacked like really badly. The YouTube channel for the After Party Live was taken over by one of those anonymous logos. The platform we used to broadcast was erased. It was bad. So I spent all night figuring it out. And thanks to John Daly, I think we got it up and running again. So hopefully everything's going to be fine and all three shows will be just fine. But what a night. And then trying to get all the shows, redoing all the work to get everything together. Thank you to Lori for sending in a couple of stories this morning. I appreciate that. It's always nice to have people chime in. Then I know what you want to hear as well. I also got an email this morning from Loretta Lynch, former president of the California Public Utilities Commission, and I'm so excited to report that Loretta is coming on the show today. Trying to scroll down to her message. She said she is confirming that she will be in right about 10 o'clock, and she said she cannot wait to talk to us about the recent rate increase that PG&E decided we all need to pony up the money and pay. She said it's illegal. So somebody with deep pockets needs to sue because I don't think I have the money to sue. Maybe you do. I don't know. But if it's truly illegal, then let's roll it back because I was talking to Pat Thurston, former KGO talk show host, currently working at a different radio station in San Francisco, and she said her PG&E bill went up $700 in 1 month. I said, "What are you doing over there?" She said, "I'm actually trying to conserve." She said, "We're really trying hard. And for whatever reason, rate increases, or I don't know if what's happening, but she's not alone though, because I've heard a lot of people say that, they thought it was going to go up $35 a month, or they thought it was going to go up another, then plus another five with the second rate increase, right? And what they're looking at is two, three, $400 more a month. That 700 is probably the most I've heard of that increase, but I don't know what I'd do if that bill came to my house. I'd probably be freaking out. We wouldn't be on the air. We'd be power free. We'd be candlelight in the evening. Something. Something's got to give. What's the I don't wear underwear cuz for the same reason something's got to breathe. You know what? You only have so much money and you just can't pay them sometimes. You just can't. I mean, I don't know how much they want from me, but I'm a bill payer, right? I like to have everything current. I like to keep the credit good. But how much are they going to charge till it gets to the point where I just can't afford to pay? And I have to sit alone and sad in the darkness. Hopefully not. All right, let's get into the news. And good morning, everyone, to you. I forgot to ask if we have any birthdays or anything going on today in the chat. Um, Jim says it's a big house, but golly, yeah. Um, oh my gosh, Jim said he happened to spot a PG&E bill laying on the a counter of someone. $2,100. Is that like a mansion? What do they have going over there? Like air conditioner 24/7 something? Pooh, go solar. That's right. Wow, that's a lot. I know. Are you talking about Pat? That's crazy, right? Wow. Luckily, she's got a job. They're okay, but wow. Yeah, she's not happy either. None of us are happy. I don't think it matters whether you're the poorest of poor or the richest of rich. Nobody wants a big, exorbitant power bill. So, Loretta Lynch will be on. We'll talk about it. Is there some recourse? Is there something we can do? And of course, we've had the whole AT&T landline situation to talk about as well. They're still taking public comment. They got an earful at the meeting. They had people lined up for days trying to talk about how they want to keep their landline. So we'll talk to her about that as well. And also, this whole thing they're trying to do where they want to know PG&E how much we make so that they can change the system to make our rates that we pay based on our income. Like, I don't know, they want a certain percentage of our income now? What? I don't know. We're not going to be paying for the power. We're just going to be paying. We'll talk to Loretta Lynch. She'll be in. Yeah. What else? I don't see any birthdays. All right. Okay. Thank you guys. It's always good chat with you in the morning. I love when I open my computer and I see everybody here chit-chatting, and it's really fun to watch it fill up with all of you. So thank you for being here, and thank you for hanging in with the Nikki Medoro show. Of course, you know that our Patreon and PayPal links live at thenikkimedoroshow.com. It is thenikkimedoroshow.com. There it is right there. So if you are so inclined to help, that is a great way to do it. And of course, the super chats and the super stickers are open as well. Vilma writing, you can go solar if you rent, but your landlord has to approve the installation. Yeah, I don't know. That's a lot of output of money. You know, a lot of people don't have however much, 10, 20 or more $1,000 to pay to put the solar in. So then it's like this cycle. But yeah, I mean, I wish we all could. Let's start the show with the discussion of the lottery. It popped. I knew it was going to pop, and pop it did. It didn't pop for anyone in California, but that 1.12 billion, it went to somebody in New Jersey last night. So the winning streak, the lottery streak is over for that one anyway. The Mega Millions has popped. So a $1.13 billion jackpot will go to some lucky winner in New Jersey. So my husband says that person is not lucky. You don't want to win a big jackpot like that. Changes your life. You were forced to move because your family could be kidnapped. He's got all these different scenarios. I'm thinking, I don't think anyone's gonna steal my kids if I don't tell anybody I won the lottery. Maybe, I don't know. Not me anyway. Somebody else won. There was a winner in California that was an oh so close kind of situation. They got, I think, 5 numbers, but not the Mega Millions, and they won $1 million, and that was in Southern California. So congratulations to the winners. That was the 8th largest prize in U.S. lottery history. And now everyone's looking at the Powerball, everyone that plays the lottery. I did go because of Luis and buy lottery tickets last night. I bought $10 worth of lottery tickets and I won $4, which means I'm out 6. I'm feeling okay about that. It's all right. It was $6 to dream, and it was a good dream for a minute, a hot minute. And we talk about the bridge. I know we talked a lot about it yesterday, this horrible situation with the bridge in Baltimore. And I was reading last night that the police were nearby, already there, and they stopped traffic when the ship hit the bridge. They stopped the traffic. So there was no, from my understanding, traffic on that bridge. And they were just about ready to go tell construction workers who were filling potholes on the bridge to get off when it collapsed and the construction workers fell in. So there were 8 that fell in. There were 2 that lived, 6 that are now presumed dead. It's a horrible situation. And it has a lot of people talking about the Bay Area and our bridges here. And Nikki and I talked about it yesterday. And then I started reading more articles about other people thinking the same thing. And I thought it was interesting. I don't know if you saw this article out of SF Gate, but this kind of information is all over the place about why Bay Area bridges are more protected and why this, I don't want to say it won't happen here, but why this is much more unlikely of a scenario to happen in the Bay Area. And it's because of the way our bridges around the Bay Area were built. They have these bumpers on them. And so they're built to withstand a ship strike like this. Here's what the spokesperson for the Golden Gate Bridge, his name is, let's get it right, Paulo Kosulich Schwartz is his name. He's the spokesperson who does PR for the Golden Gate Bridge. Director of Public Affairs. It sounds very fancy. Well done, Paulo. That's actually my dream job. I would love to have it, so I'm a little jealous. He says he calls it impossible for any ship to get close enough to either of the Golden Gate Bridge's 2 towers. And here's what he has to say. He said the North Tower over on the Marin side is half on land and half in the water. And so a large vessel would run aground before they ever hit the pier that's holding the bridge up. He said the South Tower is anchored to bedrock underwater, and it's surrounded by what's called a fender, which is a protective shield that is made to prevent ships from hitting the piers of the bridge. He said there are a lot of different kinds of fender designs for bridges. Some of them are made of wood, but they're usually attached to the pier and they act in the same way that your bumper would on a car, right? Damage the bumper, not the vehicle. Same kind of situation. So the Golden Gate Bridge on the South Tower, the fender is a concrete ring. It extends 40 feet deep. It's the same depth drawn by a large ship. Then, kind of like one of those attenuator barrels on the roadway, right at the gore point where the exit goes this way and the road keeps going this way and there's a triangle. It's called the gore point. Traffic 101, right? And they put often sand barrels there or attenuator barrels. And so just like those, the concrete fender is filled with sand, very similar to what's on the highway. It is 27 feet thick at its base, and it provides significant protection against collisions. Whew, right? I mean, load off your mind for the Golden Gate Bridge. And this was built in 37. And so what he said is that the PR person for the Golden Gate Bridge is that at the time it was built, it was considered the best of its kind. And still, in 2024, it's among the best of its kind. So maybe we need to earthquake retrofit. Maybe we need to paint it, make sure that we maintain it, do a whole bunch of other things. But as far as this scenario with a ship strike, we're in good shape on the Golden Gate. Caltrans manages the other Bay Area bridges. So we've got the Bay Bridge, we've got the Richmond San Rafael, we've got the Benicia, we've got the San Mateo, we've got the Dumbarton, and we've got the Antioch Bridge as well. And, I'm missing one. Oh, what did I miss? Antioch, Benicia, Carquinez, Dumbarton, Richmond San Rafael, Bay Bridge, San Mateo. Seven others. And they have very similar systems in place to protect them as well. So the strategy to protect is almost all the same with those fenders that are built to withstand a ship strike. They're a little different for each bridge depending on where the bridge is situated, where the piers are situated, and all of this. And also about how deep the bay is at that point, right? In the last 20 years, we've had 2 significant ship strikes. You remember the Costco Busan? I'll never forget that one. I was in the newsroom, and they said a ship just hit the Bay Bridge. Looks like everything's okay. And then we find out the Costco Busan was carrying a load of petroleum oil. And that was a horrible spill. That happened in 2007, hit the fender at the second tower west of Yerba Buena Island. So that did a lot more damage to the ship and the bay, but the bridge, it was okay. And I remember the minute I was sent out to cover that story, I saw out there the teams of people inspecting the bridge. They called them out right away. And it was in perfect shape. No problem at all. The tower base's fender system, made of composite plastic on the Bay Bridge, performed exactly the way it was designed. So the bridge was mostly unharmed. The Costco Busan, though, spilled 53,000 gallons of fuel oil into the San Francisco Bay as a result of that crash. Remember, they were cleaning up birds and taking them to this place in the East Bay and shampooing them with Dawn soap. And what an absolute mess and such a sad situation. In 2013, the Bay Bridge was sideswiped again. The fender was damaged. The bridge was not. So, and I think the Costco Busan, it was really foggy out. And so that played a role as well. So a lot of Bay Area bridges they've done the seismic retrofitting work. So long story to tell you that if that picture or the video of that massive cargo ship striking the bridge in Baltimore freaked you out a little bit and you've got to bury a bridge on your ride to work or your ride home or whatever, we're in good shape here in the Bay Area. We've built things a little differently. I don't know why that's not the commonplace way to build things all over the place, but we're doing well. Um, there's a engineer from UC Berkeley who told SF Gate that bridges in the Bay Area tend to be a lot stronger, and he said it's often because of their seismic retrofit or even the initial seismic design, because we know we're in earthquake country. So before we even build the bridge, despite the faulty bolts and screws, right, we're building it to withstand an earthquake. So, this is not the case for the Francis Scott Key Bridge. This 985-foot long cargo ship hit one of their supports, not a bumper. And it caused that bridge, as you saw, to just fall and break apart and crash into the water in seconds. And I was thinking about those workers that really had very little warning. They probably felt a bump and then boom in the water. Probably not very much time to prepare, right? So at this point, it's a recovery operation. The National Highway Transportation Safety Administration is stepping back to allow that recovery effort to continue. That's really sad. Anyway, they do say that bridge in Baltimore was fully up to code. I don't know why their codes are different than our codes, but maybe our codes need to lead the way because we seem to be doing well. Until we're not. I know we always, I always think about that. Oh, the minute it jinx it, the minute you say, oh, we're safe, everything's good, here comes the catastrophe. Knock on wood, whatever. It's supposed to rain today, by the way. It's kind of chilly in this house. I'm not turning on the heat. You know why. I don't have my blanket on though, but I do have my show sweater on. But yeah, we're getting a last minute storm already. The ski resorts in Tahoe, some of them are extending through April. So a lot of spring skiing. There are two storms set to soak the Bay Area. One of them is going to be stronger than the other one. We're going to start it this morning. Actually, overnight, I felt a little sprinkles. I had to go outside for some reason and to throw something away. And I felt the mist and the sprinkle. So I knew it was starting then. The second system is going to come Friday through Sunday. So we're looking at maybe a rainy, stormy weekend. And it's got to pack a little more punch for this time of year. So just know that we're heading into some rocky weather together. The in Tahoe, the water bottles, you guys know how I feel about plastic, right? I'm really trying to weed it out of my life. I'm not drinking out of plastic much anymore, unless maybe I'm traveling. I've flown somewhere and I have no choice. But if I have a choice, I will choose not to drink something rather than drink it out of plastic. And it's not so much for my health, although it is for my children's health. I feel like I'm riddled with so much microplastic at this point. It's probably too late for me. I've been really trying to not have my children suck down all that microplastic. And I'm kind of excited about what they're doing in Lake Tahoe because I don't want to buy it. And sometimes it's all that's available. So I just choose to buy nothing. But in Lake Tahoe, they're doing something that is so good for the world. They seem to be on the verge of banning plastic water bottles in Lake Tahoe. A whole different way of thinking, right? And some people will say, oh, they're telling us what we can and what we can't buy. But if you saw the recent cleanup of Tahoe, I think they do it once or twice a year. They scoop things out of the lake, they clean the shores of the beaches, and all the plastic bottles and all the plastic bags and all the plastic debris that's found there. I would be really concerned as well. So South Lake Tahoe is banning single-use plastic water bottles, and it's slated to go into full effect next month. Truckee is passing a similar ban. South Lake Tahoe passed an ordinance in 2022 banning single use plastic water bottles, went into effect in 2023, but only for city facilities and city events. This is going to apply to all commercial vendors on Earth Day this year. So I think this is good. They say over half of the littered single use plastic bottles collected during Truckee Day, which is their annual litter cleanup around the town, were water bottles. The town of Truckee said these plastics do not decompose. They break apart into harmful microplastics that enter then the local waterways and are potentially consumed by wildlife or by the public. And they don't want it there. And you know what? Neither do I. I don't want microplastics in Lake Tahoe. I don't want microplastics in the waterways. We got to do something. And if that means banning plastic water bottles, fine. We had every year at my kids' school, we have a salsa contest. And all the classes make salsa. And then you can make individual salsa and bring it in if you want. And people bring tortilla chips to donate to the event. And they have a list of, like a wish list of things that each grade is supposed to bring. And this year, fourth grade, we were asked to bring, those little teeny tiny plastic water bottles? I'm that mom. I'm like, I'm usually the one, because there's always a volunteer that brings all the stuff. Yeah. I go, no, I am not bringing your tiny plastic water bottles. I refuse. Now, you could probably talk me into bringing a plastic jug full of water from the grocery store if you were afraid that, my tap water from home wasn't good enough or whatever. But I'm not bringing a million teeny tiny little plastic water bottles for people. What I would say on the note home is bring your reusable, refillable stainless steel cup or whatever cup you use, because we will not be providing water bottles this year. That's the mindset we need to get into. Don't buy them. Just don't buy them. Right? Just don't do it. The League to Save Lake Tahoe found single-use plastic bottles are at one of the top 5 types of litter in the Tahoe Basin. And the litter and the trash buildup has been an increasing nuisance over the last few years. I would say this is a lot more of a nuisance, but they have tourists who left behind 8,000 pounds of trash on Tahoe's beaches on the 4th of July. Remember that? We saw those pictures. It was horrifying to look and see what people would do to the world. I mean, it breaks my heart, honestly. This is where we live. Lake Tahoe is beautiful. These are the places we need to be taking care of. So the city of South Lake hired a third-party concessionaire to manage one of its beaches, trying to get people to stop littering. And even then, people brought in these bottles. So, you can't stop people from maybe bringing them in, but if you don't sell them, that'll make a dent in what you're dealing with as far as all this plastic. They also say, South Lake, they say, we encourage you to drink the town's tap water. They say, we've got some of the tastiest, purest water in California, so drink up. I love it. I love that that's what they're doing. And I will not mind at all going to Lake Tahoe and not being able to buy water at the grocery store. Speaking about plastics, though, and I'm sorry that I'm on my plastic soapbox, but it must be done. I saw this story. There's 2 more stories. I have 3 back-to-back plastic stories. We got Tahoe, we got this one, and then we have a really interesting one about archaeology. And it's more of an after-party story, but I'm doing it now because it all kind of ties together. The plastic chemicals are inescapable, and now they know that they're actually messing with our hormones. So when you eat, drink, absorb all this microplastic stuff, researchers say the UN Global Plastics Treaty must reduce production and protect public health, because now scientists know that there are 16,000 chemicals in plastics. They don't even know why they're all in there or what exactly they all do to make this perfect plasticky concoction. But you've got colorants, you've got flame retardants, chemicals, stabilizers, lubricants, plasticizers. I'm telling you, it's a miracle we're all still walking around. 3,200 plastic chemicals pose risks to human health and to the environment as well. Most of them can leach into your food and leach into your beverages, and they cost the United States more than $900 billion a year in estimated health expenses every year. 6% of plastic chemicals, which can account for up to 70% of a product's weight, are subject to international regulations. And it's like these new, signs on things you buy. BPA free, you'll see. Oh, I'll buy this bowl because it doesn't have BPA in it. That looks good. Well, what about all the other stuff that's in there that should be banned and isn't? Like the BPB and the BPC, which are things and are not good for you. I'm telling you. There have been a bunch of studies done over the last few months, and they're highlighting one specific group, and there's probably more, as very, very problematic. Endocrine disrupting chemicals, right? Things that blast through your hormones. They're called EDCs for short. Endocrine disrupting chemicals. They are released at every single stage of a plastic item's life. They mimic hormones, they interfere with metabolic and reproductive systems, and they were recently found in samples of plastic food packaging from around the world. Not just the United States that's got a problem. We all have a problem here. They have been linked, though, in the U.S. to 20% of the United States preterm births. Someone that had a preemie, that one kind of hits me. The unchecked, they say, production, distribution, and disposal of plastics and other petrochemical-based products has led to a perpetual cycle of human exposure to these EDCs from contaminated food, contaminated air, drinking water, soil. UCSF professor of reproductive sciences, her name is Tracy Woodruff, writes in the New England Journal of Medicine that it has quietly and insidiously gotten worse while all the attention is focused on the climate over here. Oh, climate change. And that's a thing. We're not focusing on plastics. And we could actually, maybe do something fast about that, right? Like Lake Tahoe, you just stop selling it. We just don't make it anymore. We can recycle glass. We can repurpose glass. Why don't we do this? It's frustrating. So, last plastic story, and then I'll hop off my plastic soapbox. I promise. Plastics and archaeology. Here's how deep this goes. Archaeologists are now finding microplastic in ancient remains. And some of these ancient remains, they dig down. And they're like 23 feet deep. And that's how insidious this microplastic stuff is. So, they found soil deposits more than 23 feet underground, deposited in the 1st or 2nd century CE and excavated in 1980. So we started really using plastics in the 50s, I think. Maybe a little earlier, but around the 50s. And then in the 80s, it becomes a problem, but we don't realize it. So they're uncovering things in the 80s and now looking at it again and going, we got microplastics from the 1980s in here, right? This is bad scene. In total, they did this study, the University of York in the United Kingdom, and they identified 16 different microplastic polymer types in contemporary and in archived soil. They found them, they say, in the soil where ancient bones were buried and pottery was buried. And what they used to do was leave these items that they found in the soil because they were well preserved there and they didn't want to rock the boat and make them start to decay more. But now that they know that we've ruined the soil with microplastics, now they have to change the way they're doing it, and they can't leave it there anymore. Scientists are saying, while preserving these archaeological remains in situ has been the favored approach in recent years. The new findings could trigger a change in approach as microplastic contamination could compromise the remains' scientific value. You guys, we're wrecking history. We can't just wreck our own era. We got to go back in time and wreck theirs too. I mean, come on. At least, if you're going to do something, really do it, right? Wow. It's wild to me. The scientists, the archaeologists say, we really need to investigate this more. The contaminated areas with plastics include deposits sampled and stored in the late 80s. That they're familiar with plastics in oceans and rivers, but here the quote is, we see our historic heritage incorporating toxic elements. To what extent this contamination compromises the evidential value of these deposits and their national importance is what they're going to try to find out next. So, off of my plastic soapbox I go. Yeah. All right, let's talk about it. Let's see what you guys have to say, because I've been yapping, and I haven't been listening to you. What about cardboard water boxes? Thank you. A solution. What I don't want is like milk cartons where the inside is lined with plastic, but some type of cardboard water box or water box that won't leak, or something that, isn't going to lay around and degrade and ruin our hormones and make our babies be born early and ruin history. This is important to me. What do you got? Grady says, I had a science teacher in high school that made my mind up about plastics. I'm assuming it was a good science teacher in high school. Excellent. All my supplement bottles, says Gordon, are plastic. Lids cannot be recycled. No, they can't. And what are you going to do? What do you tell the pharmacist, can you put this in something other than plastic? Or I've brought my own metal container. Can you use this instead? They're going to look at you like you've got 3 heads, right? You have to buy the plastic pill bottles. But we should do something about it, shouldn't we? I mean, somebody call Scott Wiener. He's always proposing a law. Maybe there ought to be a law in San Mateo County. I mean, really? Why do we need plastic containers? John says there are ways to get most of the plastic out of the water, but maybe not those microplastics. Lori says, if we call them puberty blockers, GOP legislators won't care about it. Good point. You're probably right. Or maybe not, because they care about business more than they care about people. So maybe puberty blockers are all right in the name of big business. Grady says, I'm that weirdo that has gone way to the extreme to have only wood stainless steel made things. Grady, I wasn't with you until maybe 6 months ago. And I started really reading about plastics and really reading about what we're doing to our world, what we're doing to our children. And now, the only things I haven't been able to find in the store in glass instead of plastic, French's mustard bottles. I think they do have glass. I have to really investigate. And we still have the upside down squeezy ketchup bottle. That I want to get rid of too. But I bought, and I'm going to call this company, maybe they'll sponsor one of the shows, but I bought this set of 4 glass containers, and they have bamboo lids. The problem with them is that you can't, if you have like something wet or soupy, you can't put the lid directly in so that the bamboo is sitting in liquid. So you have to not fill it up so high, or sometimes to keep wetness off of the lid, I'll put like paper towel in there or some type of a barrier in there. But I'm feeling a lot better about what I'm doing, and because I never microwave plastic, I'm not having to take food out of the plastic container to put it on a plate because it's already in a little glass container. So these are things I'm doing as well. So I'm right behind you. I wish I would have been with you the whole time, but I'm right behind you, Grady. Yeah. Doug's like, whatever happened to filling up a thermos with tap water and then refilling it at the water fountain? Thank you. Salsa festival indeed. I'm not surprising him. What? I don't want to. Maybe it's time to scare people because this is serious business, don't you think? Yeah. Marilyn says, I'm so old I remember the time before plastic. Used wax paper to wrap sandwiches, and I went back to that. And that's what we do at my house too. We're using wax paper, and it's like it's got checkers on it, and I don't know if it's wax or not, but it's a little thicker than tissue paper. My husband is a bread baker, and he uses the wax paper to wrap up the bread and then a twine to tie it if he's giving it away to someone. So I know it's like I feel like we're going back to the old times, a time before plastic. Marilyn, take me back there. Lori says it makes me question their testing protocols. I don't know which story you're talking about, but yeah, I don't know. I'm, yeah. I question why we're not told more about the other types of plastic that are just as dangerous as the BPA. It's like we started harping on BPA and then we just forgot about all the rest of it or never knew about all the rest of it. And the rest of it is as bad or not worse. Sandy says, pretty much what I do with my stainless steel water bottle. Take it with me everywhere in the summer and refill it at drinking fountains. Yep. I mean, it's a little silly to have this massive Stanley cup. Whatever. It's huge. I refill it. I take it with me everywhere. It's always in my hand. Always. I think I'm drinking more now, water and tea. I got my Coachella Valley tea in here than I ever used to because it's just kind of always next to me full of stuff. Sandy says it's hard to give up plastic entirely. Plastic bags are so convenient, and I love my plastic storage containers. Okay. Sandy, I loved my Tupperware containers. I had cute sets of Tupperware containers. I made sure I didn't lose them. I had one every size. They fit into each other. Cute colors. No. Once you get the glass ones with the little bamboo lids, you're thinking to yourself, or even if they have plastic lids, right? If the food doesn't touch the plastic or rubber, it's so much better, and it feels a little fancier. And I haven't weeded out all of my Tupperware yet, but little by little I am giving it away with food inside, and I say you can keep that. I don't want it back. That's how I'm going to get rid of it, because I don't want to throw it out and contribute to the microplastic problem. So they've just become my giveaways. Go ahead and take that one. That's real Tupperware. Yes, it is. Sayonara, sucker. Out the door it goes. But I hear you. I was talking to Belinda Weymouth about how hard it is to give away Tupperware that you spent a lot of money on or worked hard to collect. And so I hear what you're saying, but it's time to let go, my friend. You just got to do it. Yeah. Glass, glass, glass. That's Grady. All right. French's mustard does come in glass jars. I'm on the hunt. I'll go look for that. Sandy says I tend to buy honey in a plastic squeezy bottle because it's less messy than buying it in a glass jar. Yeah, I think the mess is worth it, though. I just have to tell you. Brian uses Earth Breeze laundry sheets ordered through Amazon. All right. The problem I tried to use the eco ones, and it looked like it left a plastic residue behind, like a sheet that I had to pull out. So I'll find something else. Katie says Tupperware containers can be used for small non-food items. Good point. Yes, they can. Liz says I have glass containers, but family members are not always careful and they chip. Not cheap to replace. Mine haven't yet, Liz, but thank you for the warning. I'll be sure to be careful. I like that I can put them in the dishwasher too, and I didn't put plastic in the dishwasher, so yeah. Spencer still has too much Tupperware. Earth Breeze is made with microplastics, though. It is? Yikes. Let's check that out. All right, so now that I've done my environmental bit for King and Country, let us move on and talk about Sherry Papini. Oh, Sherry. Sherry. Remember her? She's the one that faked her own kidnapping. They found her bound, walking down the side of a freeway in Yolo County. And she said she was kidnapped and held against her will. And they found out she actually spent time with an ex-boyfriend. Left her husband and 2 kids at home and just checked out, went to see a boyfriend for a while. I mean, it's clear to me, in my opinion, there's some type of mental thing going on with her, right? So she goes to court because filing a false police report and also collecting victims' compensation money when you're not really a victim will bring charges. And she gets 18 months in prison for lying to investigators and defrauding the California Victims Compensation Board. But in addition to that, the judge ordered her to pay $300,000 in restitution. So prosecutors say, and this is back in 2016 when this was ordered that she do this. And I don't know how much she got from the Victims Compensation Fund, but it was probably a lot. Now, she's yet to pay any of this in 2024. And so the judge says, listen, you now have to pay us $340,221.23 because that includes a 10% litigation surcharge. And if you don't, it's going to be real problems. She's definitely back in trouble. So we don't know. We know that she was going through a divorce after all of this. We don't know if she's got a job. But it would be, I mean, I don't know. There's may be some kind person out there that would hire her, or maybe something she can do with a little more anonymity, on a computer at home, some type of remote work. I don't know. But I think it would be hard to get a job if you're her. She reportedly said during a supervised visit with her kids, "Mommy is an author now. She's writing 2 books and works lots of hours to write chapter books." So, at this point, she's still yet to pay anything. And I don't know if they're going to throw her back in jail or what happens if she doesn't pay. She's been given 20 days since she received notice on Monday to notify the court if she wants a hearing about all this. And I don't know. She's not paying up. Sherry Papini. All right, let's do a little bit of news. And then we'll welcome our friend Loretta Lynch to the show to talk about PG&E. But right now, it is the news on the Nikki Medoro Show.
Now, from around the world to up your street, the Nikki Medoro Show presents News Czar Kim McAllister.
Thank you, sir, giving me just a moment to cough and take a sip. Okay, let's get into the news because 6 construction workers, as we mentioned earlier, are now presumed dead after that bridge collapse in Baltimore yesterday. The crews are resuming recovery efforts today after the search for the missing workers was suspended on Tuesday night. Overnight, the NTSB boarded the ship that crashed into the Francis Scott Bridge. And an investigation into this incident, they say, could take up to 2 years to finish. It's a long time. Donald Trump says Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s presidential bid is great for his MAGA movement. In a post on Truth Social, Trump argued that Kennedy will likely siphon off votes from President Biden in November's general election. The former president called Kennedy the most radical left candidate in the race. Do you think so? I think the people that are anti-vaxxers tend to be Trumpers. So it seems to me that if the votes are being siphoned, they're being siphoned from Trump. Hey, here's an idea. Maybe he should pray. It's a good thing he has a new Bible to pray with, right? We'll talk about that in just a minute. 6, as I mentioned earlier, a growing number of Americans are disapproving of Israel's military operations in Gaza. This is a new Gallup poll done, showing 55% of those surveyed said they disapprove of military action that Israel has taken in Gaza, compared to 36% who approve and 9% with no opinion. It's a significant shift from November when 50% of respondents said they supported Israel's actions. So tide is turning, and many people interviewed for the Gallup poll are feeling a little differently here. Today, Hunter Biden's lawyers will be in federal court in Los Angeles, and they intend to argue for the dismissal of the tax-related charges filed against the president's son. Hunter Biden pleaded not guilty to 9 charges, including failure to pay taxes on overseas business income. That was brought by special counsel David Weiss. The charges carry up to 17 years in prison. Yeah, I don't know if you've ever. I've done a lot of news stories over the years about people that haven't paid taxes or what happens. Most of the time, people don't get 17 years in prison. That'll be interesting to see what happens. Tsunami sirens are set to blare along the Northern California coastline today. It's only a drill. It's okay. People living in Mendocino, Humboldt, Del Norte, and Sonoma counties receiving an alert message from the National Weather Service. It's set to happen anytime between 11 a.m. and noon. The test is done every year as a mock warning of a tsunami coming from a far distance. So the sirens will go off for 3 minutes. They will interrupt TV and radio programs, so we would have a big to-do if we were on the radio right now. There is a big update on California's fight against fentanyl as well. The National Guard helped in taking more than 1 million pills off the street, and that was just last month. About half of them were seized at the border. Governor Gavin Newsom says this highlights the importance of more security at the state's ports of entry. He is calling on Republicans in Congress to act on a border security bill. He said it will crack down on fentanyl trafficking, and that's really important. As we mentioned earlier, more than $1 billion Mega Millions lottery ticket, a more than $1 billion winning lottery ticket, was sold in New Jersey. Lottery officials say a lucky ticket holder or holders, could be a group of workers or friends, right, matched all 6 numbers drawn Tuesday night. This after the Mega Millions jackpot grew for more than 15 weeks to $1.3 billion. Lady Gaga working on a new album. The pop star spoke yesterday with YouTube beauty influencer Nikki Tutorials, and she said she's working as fast as she can to finish the album. She said she's deeply inspired right now and deeply grateful for all the excitement surrounding this new album, which is her first solo album in 4 years. So, there you have it. There are Californians still waiting for their tax refunds. Is that crazy? The state has the second largest amount of, not tax refunds, I'm sorry, unclaimed refunds from the 2020 tax year. So the IRS released data this week showing just over 88,000 people in California could miss out on getting an average of $835 back. They only have until May 17th to file returns. An extra month was given due to the pandemic, but the deadline for this tax season is April 15th. So, yeah, it's money owed to you from the IRS. So if you want it and you think you have it coming to you, make sure that you apply within the right time. This report is sponsored by you, which means we do count on you to crowdfund the Nikki Medoro Show. Please find us at thenikkimadoroshow.com. The Patreon and PayPal links are all there. And of course, the super chats and super stickers are open and ready to rock and roll. And I have to thank Spencer, who laid down a super sticker for us this morning. Thank you so much, Spencer. We appreciate it. Nikki and I both. All right. We've been talking a little bit about PG&E. It's 10 o'clock, and that means it's Loretta Lynch time. She is the former president of the California Public Utilities Commission. She is a brilliant attorney, a friend of the show, and here she is to talk a little bit about what in the ever-loving world is going on with our PG&E bill. Hi, Loretta, first of all.
Hi, Kim. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for coming. So I was telling everyone earlier that I was talking to Pat Thurston. I was trying to get her to come on so it would be like old times, but she had something to do, and eye appointment or something. And so I was talking to her about her PG&E bill, and she said, "You're not going to believe this," but she said it's $700 more than it was last year at this time. $700 more. I mean, I go, "What are you doing over there? Like, is it the AC running 24/7? And she said, "No, actually, we've been trying to conserve power more this year." And still, our power bill is, $150 to $200 more every month. This is crazy. People can't afford this kind of thing. And then you send me this email this morning that this whole double back to back utility bill fee rate hike power grab might be illegal.
Absolutely, it is illegal. So as we know, we all just got hit with an extraordinary rate increase in January, which I believe the PUC did not do nearly enough to sharpen its pencil and go after PG&E's actual costs to see if they are just and reasonable, which is the legal standard. But then I have to say, extraordinarily, the PUC on an expedited basis granted PG&E another rate increase, which they call an interim rate increase. And they just did that. I have the decision right here on March 12th. So that's going to start showing up in next month's bills. And it's completely disingenuous because what they did was PG&E asserted they need more money. And so the PUC, without any discovery, without any testimony, and without any evidentiary hearings, which are all required before they give a rate increase, said, hey, temporarily, we'll just give you 75% of what you requested now, and we'll look later at the testimony to see if the costs are correct, if you needed to spend them, and also whether they're just and reasonable. And later, sometime in 2026, if we find out that the money you started collecting in 2024 was too much, then we may order refunds. But in the meantime, they'll take more of your money without the PUC even taking a look at any facts. They're just taking PG&E's word for it.
And that's the illegal part?
And that's the illegal part because Section 728 of the Public Utilities Code says,
Love you so much.
the PUC, after hearing, may do various things. And if they do increase rates, they have to point to and list all the facts that justify that rate increase. Well, you can't list facts you don't have. And so that's what they're doing here. And what's extraordinary is, so the PG&E asked for this money in July and they get it in March, just like that in regulatory time. Extraordinary. And as you know, there's like two parallel trains. Here's the big train of the big rate increase that they decided in December. And here's the littler train, but still a relatively big rate increase that they decided in March. They know as they're driving that second train that the big train's already in front of them. But do they check to make sure that PG&E isn't double dipping? No. And in fact, Turn points it out because Turn, which is a consumer group that fights PG&E, is in both of the rate increase cases. And they're like, hey, PUC, the big train has a bunch of the costs that they're claiming for the little train. And so you can't let them collect, prematurely the costs that they're asserting in the little train because some of those are already on the big train. And oh, by the way, there's a third train coming out of the station for a rate increase this summer. And some of the other costs that they're asserting they need now are on that third train. So you can't let them double or triple dip. And the PUC says, in fact, Turn's right. PG&E prematurely included in its rate base the questions, various capital costs for recovery now in this, hurry it up and just give us what we asked for and don't look behind the curtain case. And so Turn identified some of those costs and then PG&E subsequently confirmed this as true. So even though PG&E got caught with his hand double dipping in the cookie jar, even though the PUC still is allowing them to recover 75% of what they asked for. And this is, we're talking big dollars. So PG&E predicated its motion, meaning they asked for this extra money on an asserted $5.7 billion of costs. Turn and the commission, once they started looking at it, realized that they were asking for more than they could prove. And so in response to questions raised by Turn, now this isn't formal discovery or a hearing under oath, PG&E clarified that in fact, it's only $2.7 billion. That's a difference of $3 billion. So basically, PG&E was trying to pull the wool over the commission's eyes in the little train, knowing that the big train was already going to give them billions of dollars, and knowing that the third train is geared up to give them billions more. And the commission bought it. And in the face of these two, what I would call lies, they are certainly misstatements of assertions. In the face of that, guess what the PUC did?
Don't tell me they're going to do a third rate increase. Don't tell me.
Oh, no. What they did was, so here's, they get caught in these lies twice, right? Mm-hmm. You're double dipping and you're asserting that you need 5.7 billion when in fact you only can prove, or you can't even prove because there's no proof about this, but the monies that you list only add up to 2.7 billion. In the face of that, the PUC gave them 75% of the money. Imagine that, 75% of the money in the face of that.
But that's more than the 2 point whatever billion they required.
Yeah, exactly. Bingo. And
so
then
what
they say,
what are they going to do with the extra? Are they going to give it back to us?
In the future,
oh, no, they're not.
PG&E should actually essentially get their facts right before they come to the commission in the future.
So there's no, well, first of all, doesn't the PUC feel responsible for just rubber stamping something without looking at it? And is it not their fault?
It's totally shameful. The PUC has now abdicated its responsibilities as a regulator with this decision. So this idea of an interim rate increase, meaning we'll give you the money before you've proved that you need it, before you've proved that you're going to spend it, and before you prove that you're not double dipping, plus before you prove that it's reasonable. We're just going to give you the money and we'll just disregard all these requirements of discovery, evidence, testimony under oath. Wow. We'll just dispense with that. We'll do that later, but we'll give you 75% of what you asked for in your admittedly inflated request now. And guess what their reasoning is for this? What's their justification for doing this? Too fast and too soon and too much and without any due process? Their reasoning is we want to avoid rate shock. So if we give you money,
you already gave me rate shock. People are freaking out.
Exactly.
I mean, did they not realize that it's pretty soon there's going to be a power revolt?
Well, there is now. So they're saying basically we're going to smooth the rates by letting you spread this rate increase over 26 months instead of over 12. Now, we may not even need this rate increase. It may be shown if there was actual discovery and testimony under oath that this is all double dipping and overinflated estimates. We don't know, and neither does the PUC. Yet they just approved a rate increase, and it's so disingenuous because it's going to hit next month in our April bills. But next month also just happens to be the month that we get our climate credit. So because we're going greener, and it's not PG&E going greener, it's state mandates to go greener, we get paid on the cap and trade market. We, the ratepayers, or the state of California, gets paid for using less, polluting energy. And that payment is going to come as a refund, essentially a credit on our bills next month. So they're going to slip in this rate increase as they do a one-time decrease so that we don't feel it until May and June. And by that time, this decision will be final if Turn doesn't take this decision, appeal this decision, basically, and say, hey, wait a minute, you are violating the law in doing it this way. And once that horse leaves the barn, there we go. We are off to the races with more rate increases, because if you don't need any facts, you don't need any evidence, you don't need any testimony, and in the face of PG&E misstating how much it needs, how much it's going to spend, and how much it's recovering elsewhere, the PUC still rubber stamps 75% of whatever they ask for. PG&E will just adjust their asks, and they'll just ask for 200% more, get half of it, which is actually what they need, or what they say they need, because we don't know, because there's no evidence. It's outrageous.
It's wild. Can't somebody, maybe a Loretta Lynch with legal knowledge, or maybe a billionaire with deep pockets, can't somebody sue and say, you broke the law, you admitted it, we have the proof in Loretta's hand, why isn't someone suing on our behalf?
Well, the only people who can sue are the people who have standing to sue. So just like with the mifepristone case, do those doctors actually have any damages?
Right.
And it looks like the court's going to say, no, they didn't have standing to sue. California law is very settled.
I
You
have
can only,
damages.
well, I know, but you can only appeal a PUC decision if you were a party in the administrative process, which is, of course, a sham because they didn't have an administrative process. They just had a rubber stamp process.
Yeah.
But the law says you have to have participated as a party in the administrative process to be able to appeal that administrative decision. And frankly, the only party with the chops to appeal is Turn.
Yeah.
And my concern is that Turn is going to say, well, there they go again. We've got other fish to fry. It costs a lot of money to appeal, and we're not going to do it. So this is my public plea to Turn and your listeners to call Turn or email Turn and say, hey, file an application for rehearing of the interim rate increase.
It's really frustrating as a ratepayer, as a PG&E customer, to feel like you have no recourse, to feel like you're seriously affected every month and they don't care. And they don't care what you're going through. They don't care what people are struggling. They don't care. And so, you know, even though I feel like I'm affected, I still have there's nothing I can do. Nothing.
There is nothing you can do. Now, I want to tell you that the PUC says they are concerned about people's ability to pay, and their thoughts are with us.
Oh, thanks.
So once again, we've got thoughts and prayers instead of action. I'm serious.
I really hate thoughts and prayers in all situations. I just want all the thoughts and prayers to go away. And I want real action to be taken.
We remain concerned that this grant of interim rate relief, combined with our recent rate increases, may be difficult for many customers earning minimum wage and those earning in the bottom 20% of the income brackets in California. We remain concerned, but we're going to screw you over anyway. I mean, that's what this says. It just literally says it.
Oh, my God.
I know. And you know, what's even worse, and I know I'm spending a lot of time on this, but there's a reason for this because this is so out of the mainstream. This is so illegal. It makes me sick. They do an analysis of how much it's going to hurt certain kinds of customers. So as we know, people who live on the coast use less air conditioning than people who live in the interior of California. And they've identified the severely impacted community of Fresno, California, as a place that has higher electricity bills than San Francisco does. So they use that, you know, here's the San Francisco ratepayer customer and here's the Fresno customer. And they specifically determine that there are 100,000 PG&E customers that live in Fresno. Residential. Yeah. And that's a more severe climate zone. And so their bills are higher.
Yeah.
And they say for the bottom 20,000, the people who have less income, they calculate how big of a hit this is going to be. And in the decision, and they say those 20,000 households, so they're the poorest households, but they're not so poor as to qualify for the discounted rates. The poorest households in Fresno, their bill, their monthly bill, will comprise 41.6% of their after housing income each month. So 40% of the money you spend after rent is going to pay to keep the lights on in Fresno.
No, I'm sitting in the dark. If I'm in Fresno, I'm in the dark.
How do you do that and pay for medicine and food?
Right.
How do you do that? And your phone bill and shoes for your kids. You don't. If 41.6% of your after rent income is going to pay for your electric bill, you're going to not pay for some other essential service. Mm-hmm. And even for people who are eligible for care, so that's 200% of the poverty level. That's a family of four. That's less than $60,000, right? 27.5% of their after rent income is going to go to pay their electric bill. And they have it in black and white in the decision, and they do it anyway. And that is where I say, my friends, the PUC is out of control, and we have to stop this because right now they have taken all the guardrails off on future rate increases. They're saying we don't even need to look at the facts. We don't even need to have a PG&E person under oath. We're just going to give them what they want.
What do we do?
Well, number one, the PUC can change its own mind, right? We can flood the PUC. The problem, of course, is they mentioned that many people called and emailed in and opposed this, and they did it anyway.
Yeah.
So I think the only thing we can do is turn to the legislature. I wish I could say we should turn to the governor, but this is on the governor's watch, and these are the governor's people who did this. So, or the governor's nominees.
Yeah.
And so I think we have to turn to the legislature and say, do not approve the PUC's budget until the PUC reverses this illegal interim rate increase. Just don't do it.
So I was reading the story about the exorbitant PG&E bills in the Sacramento area. And this story is from CBS News in Sacramento. And they note that PG&E saw $2 billion in profits last year. $2 billion with a B.
Record profits.
But clearly they need the money, Loretta, right? And so they talked to a lawmaker. He is Representative, I believe his name is Hawley. And Harder. I'm sorry, Harder. Josh Harder.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And he is proposing legislation that he said will ban consistent rate increases to hold utility companies accountable. And so, as you say, looking to the legislature, it looks like he's already going for it, because he said since the, or actually this is from Turn, since the Public Utilities Commission is unwilling to set limits, we need the legislature, they say, to step in and set these limits. So that's where Harder comes in, and he's trying to put limits on how many times PG&E can raise your prices.
And that's great. I applaud Josh Harder for doing that. He's a member of Congress right now, and all the folks in his district should vote for him for re-election. But he's a member of the House of Representatives, and right now that House is controlled by Republicans. And I will say to my Republican friends, hey, the Republicans are on this too. They don't want high rates, and they don't want an out-of-control utility, but it's unlikely that his bill as a Democrat in the House of Representatives is going to pass this year.
Right.
And then it has to get through the Senate, right? So what we really need are our state legislators who have control of the PUC's budget to say the PUC cannot spend another dime until they reverse this illegal decision.
Yeah. And so for that, we call our local assembly person or
and our state
senator to make that happen.
And the great news is in San Francisco, our state senator, Scott Wiener, is now the new head of the Senate Budget Committee.
Okay.
And so, hello, Senator Wiener, you can make sure that the PUC cannot spend a dime until it follows the law and holds a hearing with evidence and testimony and discovery and PG&E representatives under oath before you raise our rates again, because that's what the current law requires. They're just not following the law.
No.
And so when you're not doing the right thing, if you don't eat your vegetables and do your chores, do you get your allowance? No.
No, you don't.
Or at least you shouldn't. And so the PUC should not get their operating budget until they follow the law. And they could do that by June 30th if the legislature so chose.
That easy.
Well, it's not easy because the governor would still have to sign that budget bill.
Yeah.
But will the governor hold up the whole budget if the legislature says, hey, PUC, you cannot put more costs on customers unless you follow the law in doing it?
Yeah. It seems like once Gavin Newsom is kind of, I don't know, called out on something in some cases, like the whole Panera Bread thing with the minimum wage increase, they backtrack a little bit. So perhaps if he was put on the hot spot for this, he would. I don't know. You mentioned...
I don't know, but all I know is that this is a whole new level of illegality, a whole new level. Turn, just based on the data that PG&E put in with their application, identified double dipping and overestimating costs. And also costs that they were claiming in other cases, which is the double dipping part. And the PUC acknowledged it and PG&E admitted it. And even so, the PUC gave them the money. Now, under what universe are we going to accept that? And are we going to allow regulators to make all those bad choices and all those illegal actions in one decision? It's extraordinary.
We need a letter to send.
There you go. And so So there's that. And that's just,
Yeah.
on one rate increase out of very sadly several that are coming down the pike.
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, we've still got the issue of the income based rates that the PUC is busily working on. Instead of looking at actually PG&E's assertions about,
What
costs
they need.
and doing it themselves, figuring out where they have overestimated or double dipped costs, they are spending a lot of time and effort on making sure that that same family that's going to get hit in Fresno is going to get hit again with this income graduated rate.
Let's talk about that, because they came up with the ratio for the Fresno families, right? They knew what the percentage of income they're spending on their power bills and utility bills.
Right.
But they want to do this kind of thing for everybody. They want to know how much we make to know how much to charge us. It's an income-based flat fee, and apparently, according to PBS, it might be getting closer, right? Maybe in 2026, this is what they're thinking of doing.
Well, but the PUC will decide right now, because the legislature, because the language that the governor's office slipped into the budget bill of 2 years ago, of 2022, requires the PUC to make a decision by July 1st. So we will see a proposed decision, at least by May. And that proposed decision by law is going to require two things: a fixed fee. So they're going to say somewhere between 10 and $30 more a month, based on your income, not based on how much you use. So there's Pat Thurston trying to use as little as possible, and it's not going to matter because you're going to have to pay more even if you use less. Is that ridiculous?
So does that mean that then, if I'm paying based on my income, and they're going to collect the same amount of money from me every month, regardless of what I use, I might as well just go to town. I mean, hey, leave the lights on all night, right? Run the TV, turn on the stereo.
There'll still be a small, what they call volumetric, or how much you use fee. So you still can get popped if you use too much. Okay. But if you use less, you're not going to see the benefit of that.
Of course not.
And so they're going to charge you no matter how much you use, but then they'll charge you even more if you use a lot. And so that's the problem, is PG&E wins both ways, coming and going. Right? And the administrative nightmare and the privacy disaster of having to report your income so that you can determine how much you have to pay for your electricity bill is going to be figured out later in the wash. So first they're going to pass the rule, and then they're going to say, oh, we'll figure out who's going to verify your income and who you have to report it to later. Well, the problem is that could be hundreds of millions of dollars, because we already know that the utilities have just told the PUC it's going to cost them $75 million just to change their billing systems to start. And that doesn't include income verification.
Oh, wow.
So any imagined cost savings, how PG&E loves to estimate things hypothetically, of course, always in their favor. They're saying, well, this will bring cost savings. Well, they don't really show you how. And so they're saying, well, low-income people will be protected. And it is true. The bill says for low-income people, they'll have the lowest fixed fee. But fee upon fee upon fee for those folks in Fresno means you don't eat, or you don't get a cell phone, or you don't get new shoes for your kids this school year, because, if it's already going to be almost 42% of your after rent income just to pay the current costs, how much more are you going to have to pay with the next, even if it's $5, with the next $5 a month? What if it's $10 a month, right? That's just crazy.
This article says that it links the size, as you mentioned, of a monthly flat fee for utility service to a resident's income, earn more money, pay a higher fee. But the fee has to be paid even before your charge for how much power that you draw. So whatever, if you use too much, whatever little ding they would give you for doing that, you still have to pay before you even use it. Yeah. It doesn't make sense to me that you would pay for something that you didn't use.
Well, what's happening here is the PUC and the governor's office knows that the PUC has just stopped doing its job to control costs. So they've now allowed PG&E to have, estimated costs before they've even proven them up. They now allow PG&E to have extraordinary costs collected in advance for things they may or may not do, like 1,300 miles of undergrounding, when last year they did 150 or 170 miles of undergrounding. But they're starting to charge you now as if they're going to do 1,300 miles of undergrounding. And if they don't, well, they'll work it out in the wash later. So PG&E is amassing literally billions of dollars of cash now for things they promise to do later. And the problem here is that's just too many piles of cash. The costs of sustaining all the cash that PG&E is raking in are too high. So instead of attacking the too high costs, what they're doing is they're trying to play a shell game here and saying, well, we know that hurts poorer people more, so we'll try to protect the bottom 10%. And then we'll just allocate those too high costs even more on everybody else. And at some point, you break it's the straw that breaks the camel's back of every income level, because they're going to charge more to people who are making, 60,000 is the limit for care. So if you make 62,000, you're going to be completely exposed to those higher rates. And that's really not fair to those people making 62,000 versus 60.
Ron has an interesting point. He says, how are they going to get our income figures? It can't be constitutional to require people to tell you how much money they make a year.
Well, and therein is the huge legal issue, Ron, that they have not figured out. They just decreed this. But so for subsidies, the law is pretty clear that if you want a subsidy, then you need to prove your income if it's an income-based subsidy. Mm-hmm. So Medicaid or food stamps or Healthy Families. And we have an electric program that gives you a 35% discount on your bill if you make 200% of poverty or less, which, is not much in California because it's a federal poverty level. So those folks already have to prove their income, and they usually do it to the state. Like if you get food stamps, then you're eligible for the CARE program. Mm-hmm. If you get Medicaid, then you're eligible for the CARE program, those kinds of things. And so it's one thing to get a subsidy. It's another thing to have every customer in California, every residential customer, have to prove up their income so that they know what their electric bill is. And I agree with Ron. I think that's unconstitutional. But what I want to know is, so who are you going to report to? Who are you going to go to? You're going to give that to PG&E? You're going to give that to the PUC, or who? So right now, the PUC is assuming they're going to have a third party, because everybody knows nobody wants to give their income to the PG&E or the PUC. But the problem is, what third party? The Franchise Tax Board, that actually has some laws about confidentiality, wants nothing to do with this big pile of stinking stuff. And so the Franchise Tax Board says, we're out. We don't have the capacity to run this program too. So then who? And what kinds of privacy guarantees are you going to have? So, and also at what cost? So at the moment, they don't have any of this worked out. So they're going to basically say, ready, fire, aim, right? And they're going to require it before they know how they're going to do it. And then they're going to spend 2 years signing up some kind of third party private corporation to verify your income at what kind of cost. And then that cost will just be slathered back on the customer.
This is just stupid enough that I think they actually might do it.
Well, that's the problem. Well, the PUC would say, hey, the legislature told us to do it. Most people in the legislature say, hey, it was tucked into this 700-page trailer bill about the budget that nobody called out. So we didn't even know that little provision was in there, except for the governor's office and a couple other folks. Yeah. And so there's a great bill, AB 1999, by Assembly person Jackie Irwin, to repeal this and not do it this way. And the problem is the governor's office, is saying they're doubling down and saying, no, we're going to do it. So I hope that AB 1999 passes. The problem is the PUC may act before AB 1999 can stop the action.
Oh, wow.
I know. It's like, you cannot believe, you know how there's this picture of California is just crazy. And I usually say, well, that's just not true. In this instance, yes, it is true, because no other state does this. No other state is going to charge you for electricity based on your income
No.
and figure out how to verify it, how and when and where and at what cost. No other state does this.
It's
No other state, to
flabbergasting.
my knowledge, does an interim rate increase where you just accept PG&E's estimates, even though they're proven false, and then you start charging your ratepayers for it. No other state has gone so far to bend over for their private utilities than California.
This is wild.
Yeah.
Brian has a question. He says, do the members of the PUC get paid? And if so, what is their compensation?
Oh, Brian, yes, they do. They are full-time employees of the state of California, and you, through your rate dollars, through your electricity bill, are paying their salaries. And I actually don't remember what the average commissioner is getting. There are 5 of them, but the president gets over $250,000 plus bennies, plus bennies.
Wait, 250,000 plus benefits for the president of the PUC?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So it's a good job if you can get it. Now, let me just tell you, I used to be the president of the PUC, and I was not paid that amount. That amount went up under Jerry Brown because he wanted to appoint people who wouldn't take the job unless they got paid more.
Right.
So guess what? They pay them more. I'm so sure. And so what happens here is, and there's a great bill by Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Kahan to stop this. What happens is you go to the PUC, you get paid by the state for 6 years, and then these folks really quickly wind up as senior regulatory vice president of PG&E. Hello, Carla Peterman, former PUC commissioner. And so she's making millions of dollars based on her knowledge of or her actions for what she did on the commission.
I can't believe that this can stand. I mean, it just seems like so transparent.
Well, that's the problem is it's not transparent. The PUC makes it really difficult to find this out because if it were transparent, then they would be held accountable. And so they do a lot of this in secret or in a hurry up way where only people like me who can kind of cut through the bureaucraties can tell you, hey, this is what this means. And this is how they did it illegally. But the legislature should be overseeing this more closely, given how out of control the PUC is and how unjustifiably high our electric bills are. The legislature needs, I think, an oversight committee and really needs to focus on PUC and the ISO reform to get these bills down, because this is killing the California's economic recovery.
It's like and I don't have proof at all, but it feels like a cash cow for politicians, because the only way they would go along with this and slip things into budgets and do all these things is if there was some payoff for them in some way. I was reading that Governor Newsom and his wife, through her other work, making movies and documentaries, have received something like $234,000 from PG&E. That doesn't seem like enough to screw the people of California this way, does it?
I don't know what the number is, but I would agree that all the utilities have extraordinary lobbying and political campaign contribution efforts going on right now. And for the lobbyists at the PUC, we pay for them. We pay for every lawyer, every lobbyist, every financial person, every accountant that PG&E uses to get more money from us. We pay for that in our rates, and that has to stop. If PG&E wants to come and shower the commission with lobbyists and presence and lawyers, they should at least make their shareholders pay for that. And Senator Dave Min has a bill that does exactly that. So we need to support Senator Dave Min. Assemblymember Rebecca Bauer-Kahan has this bill that says, hey, if you're on the PUC in a decision-making role, you cannot go work for a utility for 10 years after you leave the PUC to stop this revolving door, right? Because right now it's 1 year. And even so, some of these folks go work as a consultant and not a full-time employee almost immediately after they leave the commission. And then when their 1 year is up, they become senior regulatory vice president at millions of dollars a year. It's
of course
absolutely appalling.
All right, before I have an aneurysm over PG&E, because it's close, let's talk about AT&T and the whole landline scenario. And I'm telling you, the things people have been saying, and how many people looking at a local Facebook page for my community, and people are urging others to, they're doing it online. Go talk about it right now, and the stories that people are telling about why they need landlines. I don't know how you wouldn't look at it at this situation and go, oh, okay, people really want this. We have so many people lined up to speak in support of keeping landline service, but I don't know what's going to happen with it.
Well, with a commission that did its job and was not compromised by the companies that it regulates, the answer is clear. We would require AT&T to maintain the system, and we would pay for that maintenance that we have already paid for. We, the customers, have already paid for over the last 100 years. We have an incredible system of what they call copper wires or copper lines, which support the landline system throughout California, that was developed over the last 100 years, that is fully paid for. And I can't definitively say this, but I surmise that AT&T doesn't want to maintain it anymore because they're not making much of a profit off of it anymore. So instead, what they want to do is they want to let a system that completely works, that is necessary for first responders. You should see the comments from CAL FIRE and the local sheriffs and the local fire departments about how necessary landlines were in key and critical fires to get people out of their homes. It's extraordinary how clearly the landline system works. Mm-hmm. It is the gold standard. We have already paid for it, and they want to abandon it so that they can create a new system that they will profit more from, that will be more expensive. And in the meantime, while they're abandoning the old and creating the new, more expensive, less reliable system, what happens if we have a wildfire or an earthquake? I mean, really. So it's just really clear that not everybody has a landline, but I'll tell you, if you're in a remote area or if you're in an area that gets spotty cell phone service, you better have a landline, and you better have it for emergencies. I mean, I have a variety of cell phones, but I also have a landline because I live in San Francisco, and this is earthquake country. And the only thing that's going to work is your landline in an earthquake. The only thing. And so you need those landlines for the customers who pay a pretty penny to keep those landlines. You need them for reliability, for safety, and for older customers who aren't that cell phone savvy. You need it just for communication with the outside world. And shame on AT&T for, because of profit-making reasons, to abandon something that works intentionally just so they can make more money.
People in the chat, even Mindy's mom, she said, my mom's got a landline. I can't fathom what we would do if we have an earthquake. Landlines are important. A lot of other people saying, listen, what does Sandy say? You're going to have to pry my landline from my cold dead hand, right?
Well, see, the problem is at some point the PUC is just going to let AT&T turn it off. And so you'll keep your phone in your house, but it won't work. Even though we have a completely workable system now, and we pay every penny of the maintenance costs, but that ain't enough for AT&T in their relentless grab for more profits. That's the problem here.
I was reading that AT&T is supposed to be, what do they call it? The company of last resort, or something of last resort. Like that, they're the ones. If they don't do this, no one else is going to do it. And so
we're the provider of last resort because they get a guaranteed profit and guaranteed cost recovery through the PUC. So it's not like they're the provider of last resort and they're betting on whether or not they can make rent, right, or cover their costs. We cover every penny of their costs through regulation, and we cover their profits through regulation. That's the problem here.
But maybe it's just not enough of a profit for them. It's not enough of a rent for them, right?
Right, because the capital costs, aside from a couple, new pieces of infrastructure, is already paid for. So it's actually a low-cost, well-running system. Now, is it 21st century technology? No. But is it tried and true and it works all the time technology? Yes. And so in some locations where they can, they have the copper wires in the ground and they haven't been digging it up, right? So that still works. But in some locations where they have their connector offices, right, their connector branches, they're using more digital technology for those connections. And that's fine. It works in San Francisco for now because we have good cell service, and also that we still have the copper wires in the ground. But by and large, the copper wires are, 20th century technology that works just fine, but most importantly, works in fires and earthquakes and safety problems. And if you don't believe me, listen to the sheriffs and the fire departments of every small and rural town in California being alarmed that this could happen and that they would lose their means of communicating with the people that they are dedicated to serve and keep safe.
And if that happens, is there any recourse for people that are affected? Say we have another town of paradise, and because the landline service is gone, then, more people are killed, more houses are burned. That people, and then can we turn around and sue the CPUC and the AT&T for taking these steps?
No, because the PUC will have allowed them to do it. That's the problem. That's why they've applied to the PUC for the authority, so that they get legal protection. And so if that happened, and if the PUC allows this travesty to occur, what will happen is at some point, AT&T will create a whole new digital system, either voice over IP or some kind of other much more expensive and absolutely much more up-to-date system, but not necessarily more reliable. That's the problem. They can't prove that the digital systems are more reliable than the copper wires. But what they say is, we're working on it. And sometime in the future that we're not going to promise any dates or any costs, you'll have a new system. At what cost? Well, to be determined. At what level of reliability? We don't know yet, but we hope for the best.
So the Public Advocate's Office says the schedule for the CPUC to make the final decision on this has now been postponed until at least April 30th. That is the deadline for other providers to express interest in becoming the company for one or more block groups currently covered by AT&T. I don't know if anybody else is going to come forward. And also they, to hear from people. The question I have for you is, does AT&T have the same kind of cozy relationship with the CPUC as PG&E? Is this just a rubber stamp situation?
I hope not, but yes, they do. The very sad thing is utilities, because AT&T is a utility in this sense, because it's the provider of last resort. Utilities have a financial interest in making sure they can co-opt the regulator. The regulated gets more money if the regulator is in a cozy relationship. So they spend money to ensure that cozy relationship.
Why don't?
And I'll tell you, when I was president, well, they sure should. Yeah. When I was president of the PUC, the international head of AT&T at the time, Pac Bell, Ed Whitaker, came to see me. And he started with saying, well, they tell me you're my enemy. And I said, why? Who is they and why are they saying that? And he said, because we didn't get, what we needed in our last rate case. I'm like, well, you didn't prove that it was reasonable. And he's like, well, there you are. You're my enemy. If you don't give them everything they want, when they want it, how they want it, they consider you the enemy. But that's not the job of the regulator. The job of the regulator is to protect California customers and to ensure that we have service when we need it, whether it's electric, gas, or telephone service. And that's their job, and they're not doing it.
I don't know, Loretta, when we leave this conversation, what to do, because it feels like a helpless situation.
And so therein, I have some hope, because as you know, Kim, I haven't always been that hopeful in the past when we've talked. But there is a new sheriff in town in the legislature. We have a new assembly speaker and a new head of the state Senate called the President Pro Tem. And the President Pro Tem is Senator Mike McGuire out of Healdsburg. And the new speaker is Robert Rios out of Salinas. So they're both from Northern California. Mm-hmm. And frankly, I think they both have more of a consumer orientation than the prior leaders. And we have a blossoming of new bills in the legislature that the prior legislature would never have thought of running because of how strong the utilities lobbyists are in Sacramento. But these legislators are going for it, and they're saying enough is enough. Mm-hmm. Let's fix this system. Now, granted, each bill has just a little, piece of the elephant in fixing this system, and we really need to reform the entire elephant, and make it not an elephant, but more like a cat in terms of costs. So just to mix a lot of metaphors, but I am newly hopeful that the legislature will actually hold the PUC to account. And so that's why I say, please call your legislator and tell them, do not approve the PUC's budget until they follow the law. Do not approve the PUC's budget until they save the landlines. And for instance, Assemblymember Gail Pellerin from Santa Cruz sent a letter last month to the PUC saying, hey, this is really going to negatively affect my constituents if you allow them to abandon the landline system. Don't do it. Don't do it. So they're a feisty bunch, this new leadership and the newer legislators.
I like that.
And I really have hope.
You're very positive about this, because my feeling is that AT&T and PG&E and, with their $2 billion profit a year, they swoop in with all this money, and they probably, snap up power and influence and get people to go along with them by donating to campaigns and, I don't know, whatever types of trips they're offering or whatever it is. And so, it's nice that you're thinking that these people are willing to fight for us, because it doesn't seem like we've had that until maybe this moment.
This year, I can feel the difference. Yeah. There are so many people in the legislature that are saying, hey, we got to fight this. So there are 20 co-sponsors to Assemblywoman Irwin's bill to repeal the income graduated utility tax. 20. Yeah. Now, that's really significant out of a legislature of 120. And I also think that these are not partisan issues. I think that the Republicans, if they're smart and care about their constituents, are going to go along, because this is just about reining in excessive and unwarranted costs at a time where California is really hurting still. We really are. I mean, our unemployment rate is the highest in the country. And I think in part because we have all these embedded costs that just aren't reasonable. And this is one of them, both the telephone service and the electric service, that we can do something about. Our elected officials can do something about that. Just by the way, the other thing is, you said taking them on trips. I just want to note that last year's trip was to Paris. And so the utilities and some created a foundation that they launder money through, basically, to take legislators and PUC commissioners and their staff anywhere in the world they want to go for 2 weeks. So last year, many people from the PUC went to Paris on the foundation's dime. But where does that foundation get its money? The utilities.
This is craziness.
And that should just be stopped. I mean, you should not be able to go anywhere, not even to Denny's, on the dime, and certainly on the laundered dime of the utilities. But you sure shouldn't be able to go to Paris.
The angel in the Bay Area with a super sticker comes to say, you're late to the conversation. Would this change lead bring back regional telephone services and companies like we had pre-Big Bell, like the old-fashioned switchboard? No, it would just force AT&T, to continue the landline service. That's all it is. Right.
Yeah. We're not going back to perhaps the better old days of only landlines, that's for sure, although I love my cell phone. But we are saying we've already paid for a system that works, and it works just fine. And it may not have every 21st century bell and whistle, but what it does have is the capability of working in an emergency situation when the 21st century technology does not. I don't know if you've been without a phone in an emergency. I have. It is really frightening, because the cell phone towers go down in a fire often, or, in an earthquake, and it's going to take them a while to get back up. But in general, the landline service, which is buried, still works. Now, it doesn't work everywhere, right? If you're on the San Andreas Fault and the San Andreas Fault moves, that particular part of the landline service might break. But it's not going to break everywhere, and it's designed so that even if it has one break, it doesn't bring the whole thing down. Whereas in the cell phone world, you have one break, and it's more likely to bring the whole region down.
Loretta Lynch, I could talk to you all day long about all of these things. I'm taking some good vibes of in your hopefulness. I'm bringing that into my soul. I will be contacting my state senator and my state assembly person to talk about both of these things, because I feel like if there's anything we can do, we should do it. If there's
Right.
any way to try to fight back, we should take that fight.
Stop the PUC from acting unlawfully. Stop the PUC from letting AT&T abandon the landline service that works, that we paid for. Stop the PUC from passing interim rate increases. And the way that those legislators should stop the PUC is to hold their budget until they follow the law and do the right thing.
Yep.
Hold their budget. Do not let them spend more money giving it up to the utilities is all I have to say.
Thank you for paying attention to all this, and thank you for being such an amazing expert for us. Please come back when Nikki is here. I look forward to the next time we have a chat.
Well, it's awfully good to see you, Kim, and thank you very much for having me, and good luck with the show. I love your show.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it. Nikki and I both do. Thank you. All right,
Thanks.
Loretta Lynch, everybody. Bye. So we've got to call the state senators. We've got to call the state assembly people. We've got to make sure that we stand up for ourselves, because nobody else is standing up for us, because the governor's not standing up for us, because the CPUC is not standing up for us. Meanwhile, more money is getting sucked out of our paychecks and our bank accounts. It's going to be based on our income, you guys. I mean, come on. So here's what she said. Tell your local lawmakers to hold PG&E accountable, right? To save the landlines and to follow the law. So that's where we end it. Nikki will be back tomorrow. On the Mark Thompson Show, you'll have John Rothman, you'll have David Katz, and maybe a surprise video from Belinda Weymouth as well. That is coming up next on the Mark Thompson Show. Thank you for being here with me on the Nikki Medoro Show. Spencer with a super sticker, thank you. Joy coming in. I love that you have Loretta Lynch. I do too. I mean, seriously, she just knows her stuff so well. She understands this inside and out. And by the time we're done speaking with her, I hope we all understand more than we did when we started the conversation, right? I mean, I kept her for a long time because I feel like we're all learning so much from her, and it's so important because I feel the frustration, but I don't know the nitty gritty, and she knows it all. Thank you, Joy, for the comment and for the $10 super sticker. And Angel in the Bay Area, hopefully you got your question answered, and thank you for the super sticker as well. Thank you for supporting the Nikki Medoro Show. Oops, I'll take that banner down now. You can find us at thenikkimedoroshow.com. That is the ways you can support the show. If you have anything left after paying your PG&E bill, Lord knows how it is to be a Californian these days. Thank you for being with us, with me here on the show, and for all of the comments in the chat. You guys have had a really lively discussion today. I appreciate you all being a part of it. Yeah, Mindy, Loretta is one smart cookie. Absolutely. I have not purchased my Trump Bible, Phineas. We're going to talk a little bit about that on the Mark Thompson Show. It is $60 the Bible, and Trump is partnering with Lee Greenwood, you know, the God Bless America singer. And it's all very patriotic until you realize, what are the 10 commandments? Isn't it like thou shalt not lie? Is thou shalt not lie one of them? I don't know. How about covet thy neighbor's wife? What about adultery? What about all these things? But you're going to sell me a Bible? Maybe he's got the edited version. You know, we just picked out the parts that he's following, if he's following any at all. Maybe it's just thou shalt not murder people. That's the very skinny Bible with Trump. We're down to this much. No, it's actually a big, thick Bible for $60. Can you believe it? I'm going to ask John Rothman on the Mark Thompson Show if there has ever been in presidential history any time where either a current or former president or candidate has decided to hawk Bibles. Has that ever happened before? It's wild, especially when you think about, you know, I mean, I know they all have to say God bless America, and they all have to say they believe in God, and they all have to be, you know, go to church or what have you, right? You're not elected unless that's your way you live. But what about the separation of church and state? I mean, if you're selling Bibles on one hand and running president with for president with the other, it just leaves me with the oogiest feeling of oogies, and it's just so hypocritical. All right. Sorry, don't get me started. Here comes the Mark Thompson Show. That is next on YouTube, and I can't wait for it. The After Party Live will happen today. The hacking problem has been solved thanks to John Daly, so we will do the show. And again, thank you for hanging out here on the Nikki Medoro Show. So Nikki and I will see you tomorrow, but until then, I'll play a double back-to-back version of Jacob playing the Nikki Medoro song. See you later, you guys.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. You sprout like a beautiful blossom. You're also the best. I really can't rest. You're all so awesome.
Wow. Okay.
Nikki, you're all so awesome. You sprout like a beautiful blossom.